This is Ignacio Vieira. My guests think you can hear them, but you can't. I'm going to be bringing them on in a second. It's I want to thank my guest Jasmijn for fixing my camera before we came on. She gave me when a director gives you instructions on how to position your camera, you just follow it. So I had my camera right above, like about 15 centimeters up, with my glasses covering my eyes. And thankfully, I had the consultancy 2 seconds before we came on air from Jasmijn, and here they are, my eyes for you guys to see. Jasmijn Schrofer is a Dutch Chinese American director. She's relatively young given the amount of work she's put out already. We're going to be going through all of her work, and perhaps we should bring her on. Hello there, Jasmijn. How are you?
Hey, beautiful eyes.
Thank you. How's it going? It's such a pleasure to have you here. I really didn't think we could make it, but here we are. You frozen? Oh my God. She fell. She dropped. Her call dropped just as she came on. Oh, yeah. There she is. She's back on. Hello there. You disappeared for a second. It's such a pleasure to have you here. To discuss Jasmijn's work, life, achievements, dreams, future, and accomplishments, I have with me two colleagues, Lily Zefer, who is a film buff, as she wanted me to describe, but she's also a student of film, I have to say, with major accomplishments in the area. And Letícia Dacke, podcaster, Brazilian podcaster, podcaster of Pistolando in Brazil, my partner in this endeavor in the Invita channel. And here they are. Hello guys, how are you? Such a pleasure to be on a full,
Fine.
Good to see you.
Almost full female panel.
Be here.
Thanks for being here. So I wanted to, before we start talking about Jasmijn's work, I wanted to show her soon to be released. Can I say that? Soon to be released film.
Yes, absolutely.
Death of Darkness. And I'll leave you with it first, and then we'll engage in chatter. Fantastic. It's well, I didn't want to get straight into the depth of darkness, but I just wanted to give the viewers a little idea, a little bit of an idea of what you are aiming for on your next project. But I wanted to start with and kick off with finding
Where it all began.
How do you know that? I mean, such a multicultural conversation in itself. We've got Brazil, Turkey. I forgot to mention Lily's from Turkey. We've got UK, I guess, and just within your genes, we've got another 3 countries to introduce to the conversation. We've got you're a Chinese American Dutch, I believe, born in Holland, but son of an American, daughter of an American with a Chinese.
Yeah, exactly. My mom is a Chinese-born American. Dad is Dutch.
And
also some
to add to the mix. With but where does the film, or maybe I should say the art inclination, come from? Is it family driven? Is your family artistic at all, or is that are you first generation art inclined person?
I must say it runs in the family, and I've been realizing that it really runs in the family recently. It's the heritage, the lineage. My dad's very proud of it, and I'm starting to realize what a gift it is. My grandfather and grandmother, both of my dad's father, always stimulated me to go to art class. I really went into sports. I always went to all sorts of pottery classes and play classes, drawing classes when I was.
Right. And so did you make into film school? Did you go the academic route, or was it more a do it yourself that got you started in the business, I guess?
It always starts with do it yourself, but I did study film, not the academic kind, analyzing films, but the hands-on, very artisanal Holland, the native.
Right. So tell us a bit about your the how you put together your first film that you consider your first film. I mean, you've obviously played around through your teenage years and in art school, but what do you consider the beginning of your career?
I think my first film I consider being a film is the first film that got some recognition. So, been seen, of course, previous works, and it was the Unfold dance. So I choreographed a short film about actually some. I wanted to process the story in a very physical, translate the story into film in a very physical way. I put all elements together: music, dancers. I made that film in school. However, I was studying documentary. I secretly made a dance film.
But in a way, you were still approaching the dance film as a documentary. as you say, you felt you were documenting an event or a relationship, I should say, between you and your mother, no?
Yeah, but I didn't use like documentary-based casting. So I did kind of reenact and cast and went for looking for location. But and I think actually that every even fiction film starts kind of from a documentary, because drive, which is personal, or from your reality, in order to make it fiction. I think the line is always very vague for documentary becoming fiction
Right.
or fictionalized.
Letitia?
I was wondering why okay, so as you said, you didn't want to step right into Heart of Darkness, but since the trailer was already displayed, you mentioned that you changed the name. What's your reason for having changed the name? I'm just too curious.
It was a minor.
Leave it to the end of the interview. I'm sorry, I need to know.
So the film was called The Death of Darkness, and I changed it into Death of Darkness. And it sounded a little less epic, removing the and calling it Death of Darkness made it sound more poetic. Also, it sounds very ultimate. Like if you add the in front of a sentence, the jacket, it becomes like the only one there is like a superior kind. And I wanted to humble my film a bit more. And it's still ongoing process. So there are several depths of darkness around the world. Depths of darkness happened. They're still happening. Therefore, I removed the to make it actually a bit larger. I think the is overvalued. It's overused in the world. People are using the all the time, but it's a bit egoic also. So I really like removing it.
I like the way it sounds now also. What was your motivation for making this film? What clicked to make you think of doing something like this? Because it sounds like a pretty big enterprise. You'll be talking to a lot of people and etc. So why? Because it sounds really in terms of concept as well, not just the execution, but it is a big thing to think about. There's a lot of history behind it. There are a lot of things we can kind of foresee for the future. Why talk about this? What was it that clicked the idea in your head?
It is actually so difficult to connect to nature in a city, and I realized this when I was closing my curtains to street lights out, as I put in the video. And in cities, we are so hyped up and living against the rhythms of the nature. The cycles of the moon, I was never in tune with them, never really aware of what was happening outside of, my small world, like the city bubble, and only looking to things, only looking at things actually the whole time. And I only see darkness when I close my eyes to sleep. And so this material world is out there all of the time. And I thought if there would be more darkness in our lives, I think we would also connect to a higher self, a more spiritual kind of world, and an inner world, a more balanced world. So I thought, what kind of repercussions does light have? What is the meaning of it in our society, and symbolic way of how we use light? And then I actually saw light as something so negative after relating it to power and to money and to economy, and like superior and enlightened, that I was so curious to find out what is happening in darkness. And that's how my journey started.
That's so much to think about. A lot of food for thought. Want to watch it?
And I guess
yeah, and the film is very small.
go, Lily.
How small?
It also sounds like it's part of your own self-search, soul search, from what you just described in terms of darkness and light. Is it also, because when I watch your films, it seems like it is your own personal journey to soul search. This lightness and darkness also reminds me of it.
That is very much. The soul search is also related to embracing the shadow sides of my personality.
Yeah.
A lot of people suppress their self-limiting beliefs, or have self-limiting beliefs, but don't want to face them. So thoughts like, I'm not worthy of love, or I'm not good enough. People have done this already. Why should I engage in this work or in this topic? So all these negative thoughts, or a thought like, I am ugly. I think there's a lot of power in connecting to the opposite side of you, like the person you don't want to be. If you embrace that dark side, there's also a more whole experience of you. So I think the cannot exist without each other. And in personal development, I did also, while I developed this film about light and darkness, I also did a lot of that kind of shadow work.
Is that work through?
I could see that in Tarikat.
Sorry, I'm going to leave Lily to speak. Go on.
Yes. Was that also? I think I could see that in Tarikat. It was amazing how authentically you showed the process of, shall I say, spiritual ecstasy, and after doing the shadow work, how you go to a level of wholeness where you can leave behind everything and feel the emptiness of the heart, the silence. It was beautiful.
Yeah, Tarikat is also then about letting go. Like the first step, the accepting. Or maybe the shadow work happens before Tarikat, or actually the shadow work happens after Tarikat. My process, personally, it happened after Tarikat. Tarikat was my first spiritual experience with a mystic group. But then for Death of Darkness in Africa, I also met these very connected animistic tribe. So they're they have some very mystical ceremonies and rituals, and I would love to focus on a film just about that, what happens there. But now in Death of Darkness, I have a single scene where they perform this ceremony during full. That's when they celebrate and have parties. I wouldn't say it's really more tribal than shamanic, because there are no potions, no infusions or any plant medicine being perform a dance in which I think release a kind of Kundalini energy by making this movement with the head. So that's what happens in the new film, and it's just it also in tariqat they do more this kind of movement, or they move the head from left to right, and in Africa it's up and down. And of course, like the jumping. If they're grounded people more. I noticed.
Sounds very
Asians spiritual in a light, water, air element. Africans are spiritual in an earth element.
Lily.
Yes.
Do you want to go deeper in the healing?
Yeah, I was really actually
Healing.
moved by this. I felt that the right and left perhaps is feminine and masculine. I'm also really interested in Rumi or Sufism or any kind of esoteric schools. I'm from Turkey, but I've never actually been involved with them. But I've been reading Rumi a lot, which I think they are kind of the followers. And how the whirling dervishes do is holding the upper world and the underworld with their hand and turn around. I think what you describe in the African community is kind of similar. Is that what you would say?
I see also a lot of connections. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Film doesn't focus on that, but I totally see that all these, a lot of people around the world that do this kind of work, or not work, that have these sorts of celebrations in their life. Been in earth, so the hands, the way they keep their hands, movements from up to down. So then back and forward.
And there's that seems to be at least I see from the beginning of your career that you've more focused on people and relationships, and there seems to be a change at some point that you and this is the opinion of a viewer, that you switch from this focus on one specific person or your relationship with your mother, for example, and you move on to I'll use the verb documenting, but that may be inaccurate, as you pointed out before, but you move on to making films about rituals, and that's definitely the case with Tarikat, but also with After. After is a film about an after party. It's young people gathering after a night out in Amsterdam, and I wonder whether that's fair to say. Is After, well, it's obviously about a ritual. I don't want to say that. Is it about a ritual? Is After a ritual? Did you change into making films about rituals? Did you see that move?
It's nice to get that feedback section of you.
But
I didn't
no.
experience after as yeah, it totally makes sense also. And in a way, I also do think that after tarikat, so the mystical Turkish order is very much related to the youth culture. Both are actually considered countercultures, but the Sufi is a more timeless counterculture. Youth with their techno music, but they do you both use trance and a lot of rituals. There's a little bit more mindfulness Sufism than in drugs, but when people take drugs together, I always enjoy the moments where it's a very communal decision, a collective decision. So it's like, hey guys, I want to check in with you. Do you feel like taking some extra MDMA? And
Yeah.
if everyone agrees,
I'm not doing
then
on my own.
you know that they gather in a circle. They also gather in a circle.
Lily, something touched you there.
And I recently read something about
Okay.
yeah.
Carry on, please, Jasmine.
Oh, well, I read something about the life phases that humans go through, the 7-year cycle. And I've also been reading about those 7-year cycles and seeing how my work has changed a little bit, especially when a new cycle started. So one of the earlier cycles in your like teenage years are very much about opinionating, judging what is right and wrong, and trying to fit in. And then afterwards, so that's I think 21, and then from 21 to 28, you start to zoom out, and then actually every year after, every cycle, you zoom out more and more, and then also you start to serve people more. So I think that's also a little bit what I see happening in my films is, first I was judging my mom or still having some struggles with my baggage personally, but as soon as I grew older, I was able to let that go, and now I'm able to make more, maybe activist films or socialist films that serve humanity.
As in, once you finished dealing with your own issues, you're able to offer yourself and your work and your efforts to in a more altruistic way.
I believe so.
And
I believe that's also what I feel that drives me more. I want to find some more importance, and the importance is not myself. The importance lies outside of myself. But it's still about what I perceive as important.
Before we move on, did the lighting of that one single light in that small village in Africa feel like a ritual? And then I'll pass it on to Leticia.
The lighting that the moon is totally. Is that what you mean?
No, I meant the. I believe you witnessed the lighting of the first electric light in a village. I was wondering whether you ended up filming a ritual without knowing whether it became ritualistic, became an event, but maybe not. Maybe you filmed the ritual of the moon, that because you also lived in the tribe, right? You lived there for a little while. Maybe that's worth touching on before we move on.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But nonetheless, the film succeeded. But the moment of the lights being turned on, like that's something that just happens, and people didn't celebrate that in a huge way, or there wasn't any build up created tension, like with music before pressing the button or flipping the switch. There was no such moment of ritual.
Because people know what to expect, more or less. So it wasn't like it was just something that was missing, but that everybody kind of knew what it was about. It was no novelty because it's been around for such a long time. So they had probably seen it in other places. So it wasn't a surprise anymore, maybe, or something else that I'm missing.
Well, there's a big thing that the detail. It happened during the day. So when the light goes on during the day, the impact is not so huge because it's so bright. No, and I tried to influence this, but it wasn't possible. There were too many people of authority there, and it's so difficult to shoot a film in Africa. So it actually also it didn't become a scene even. So if people expect to see this epic moment, maybe this podcast is a plot spoiler. It's not there.
How difficult was it to make a movie in Africa? What kind of difficulties did you face? Apart from the obvious things that we can think about, like no electricity or things like that.
Realizing that it is almost impossible to explain that you're a student and you have little money, or it's a low budget production, and it's a wild epic journey how you found the tribe that is about to get light, like to get that data, to get that information from the authorities. That was very difficult. But when I arrived there, they just wanted money for collaboration. And that was a very big I was a bit decepted in that, because I thought I'm going to go there and they'll see my effort and I'll spend my time there, and it's something very unique that I want to capture for them. But they didn't have any like need for it to be filmed. So they thought, if you want to film it, then it's your work and you need to pay us. So I had got zero collaboration. And in Holland, I would have more collaboration, and you would also never pay your characters. That's kind of like the ethics of documentary. They say you don't pay your characters. That's the format. But there, I noticed that it's not the way to make a production work or to shoot a production. That was one of the challenges.
Anything else apart from this practical side or logistics, or was it difficult because you're a woman or
Because
something like that?
you also lived there. You had to integrate with the small village and the people of the small village. I believe.
Yeah, and I didn't feel comfortable, even though I had a strong intuition who I liked and who I disliked, or who I trusted and distrusted. I couldn't focus my attention and my camera to a single family within the community, because that would also create a lot of disbalance in the. There was already so many things. There was much happening. So I had to. My approach was to be a bit everywhere. So I was with several families, several people, really in the village town and outside the village town, with more the families, with the herders, with the businessmen that just came from a nomadic background and started a trade this generation. I see how a lot of greed and jealousy, those feelings were projected onto me, or when I was with people from the community, then other people always, and then spending, I would not pay them money. So they saw me as an opportunity. And it sounds terrible to say they, but I mean, I was in the middle of nowhere, and I was the only foreigner, and I still am the only connection they have to the outer world, since there are no tarmac roads going to that place. So I'm still getting Facebook requests from people from that tribe or elsewhere, like kilometers away, because they heard I was there with them.
You became a superstar,
you know.
of kinds.
Yeah, talk of the town.
Did you expect that? So I think
actually, what was another interesting
something like that, the idea crosses your mind that this is going to happen, but was it the way you were expecting it to be? Did you think it would going to disrupt the climate among the people this much? Because you said you were disappointed, so you were probably expecting something else entirely in terms of how people would behave with each other regarding you, and people being jealous and so on. Did you see that coming at all?
I didn't see the jealousy coming. I thought there would be more harmony within the community. I was looking for a very idealistic kind of lifestyle, with a lot of love, time, and deep philosophical talks, because they have so much darkness, they have so much time, and they probably know all the answers to life. They live in such a slow pace, but what I found was a community that suffered from droughts. There were killings from other tribes because of cattle grazing on different grounds. So very traditional crises that caused conflict and war, water stress, and that was very distracting for the vision I had on my face.
I always
with my
wonder.
film,
I always
with my
wonder.
project.
I always wonder with projects like this, whether the main gain and the main takeaway for the filmmaker themselves, especially in a situation like yours, that you go away and you experience such an unusual and new set of circumstances, whether the main takeaway is the film itself, the final production and what comes after, or whether the experience is so much more enriching than whatever may come after.
Yes, it is the experience, and sometimes it's an incredible burden to have pitched your idea, and then arrive in a place where you don't want to shoot, or it's not, you don't feel like it's the right moments to shoot. There's this pressure of delivering a film to the funds because you received 10,000s of euros to make this film. So that's very much like result based, final results. They want to see the final product, and you need to deliver that final product. But making the film and having all these experiences, it's kind of mind blowing. And then sticking to your project, like, oh yeah, we're here to make a film. That's such a weird agenda to have. It's a bit ridiculous in a way. So some filmmakers are able to think about these situations already beforehand, and they use that in applying for a fund. So it's really much about them changing the situation, being in a tribe as the only foreigner, and the film will be about the implications their arrival has. And they will be shooting throughout the whole period, and it will also be a lot about like interrelational things. But my film and my pitch never had that form. So I didn't write in my project proposal how I would relate to them, or there was no wall being broken, no interaction. Like my film is a very much observing film. Like the camera pretends not to be there, and I had to tell them very often, like, okay, don't look at the camera, just do whatever you're doing. And it's very unnatural, of course.
It's interesting you mentioned that it's like camera is not there and as an observer, because in all of your films I felt that you're really good at capturing really authentic moments, as you say, just as an observer, but also really emotional landscapes. And it feels, although they are documentaries like in Tarikat, and although the dancers were perhaps they were actors, but still it felt very personal, that it felt that you're moving towards very personal, emotional explorations. Would you say you would further go that way or go more documentary? Because they feel very personal.
I do feel that but a film is coming up with about me and my subject, because the interesting moments happen between me and my subject, and without me interacting, there wouldn't be an interesting moment. So I am thinking now about a new project and film with a character and about our relationship.
Ah, interesting.
And this is really a new thing. It's about me and an older man of almost 70. and we have a very intimate relationship. We see each other every single week, and yeah, it's just a very special friendship that have. I'm the only woman that he's been so close and intimate with in years. So I really have his. I have the ticket to his soul and to his heart, and it is beautiful to capture that and him that way. And I think he's an inspiration for mankind. As a very beautiful heart and soul, and amazing stories. Amazing stories.
So then you would perhaps move to future films with this kind of stories? You sound like you're very heartfelt. You want to bring people's stories in.
Yeah, I actually want to make only positive films. After Death of Darkness, there's still, but I also don't really have a clear vision about where I'm going.
Which is good.
Things might. So I thought maybe my films will become more and more an experience and less of a cinematic story. Maybe they'll become more interactive, more museum pieces. Theater. Yeah, and multi-platformed.
But also you have mentioned, or I saw in a previous interview, and maybe you spoiled the whole thing because you mentioned this whole new other projects. When you started talking about this new other projects, I thought you were going to mention the project about, because you do parallel work. You're not just a filmmaker. You're also a food designer and an experience designer. So you don't design experience just for yourself. You design experience to others, I believe. And there's one experience that would maybe make it into a film, right?
You mean waxing film?
I do. I do.
Yeah, so
Was I not supposed to mention that?
that project, and this is also a bit of a performative film, and I'm also playing a role in this film. So I will be a waxer, or I have been a waxer for about 6 months, and I've been waxing especially the vulvas of women in a salon. So they a full Brazilian or Brazilian strip, and I did that work. So I spent a lot of hours making women feel comfortable while doing something extremely uncomfortable. And this 30 minutes journey for them was quite an experience. Me connecting to them on a very female level was what I want to investigate further. So I'm gonna make a film about waxing vulvas, and
I love that.
research Searching
Yeah, I love it too.
femininity.
I don't love waxing, but I love the idea.
And what do you love about it? What sounded
It's
so
interesting.
appealing?
It's very interesting because it is a kind of torture. It hurts like crazy. Why do we do it? Why do we subject ourselves to it? And right?
Who do we do it? Who do
Brazil,
you do it for?
This is huge.
Yeah.
Yes, it
In
doesn't make
Turkey
any
too,
sense.
it's huge. But you get to have really intimate conversations with the person that is doing the waxing. That all of a sudden it's like drugs. All of a sudden you're in the deep end of the talk, and often it's very feminine subjects, as you say. It's amazing.
Ritual. It's a ritual.
Like
yes,
by the way,
there's so many things involved.
It's a
There's
ritual.
So many things involved.
Fuck no.
It is in a way.
Oh shit! You're filming another ritual.
Ding ding.
Can I come and play in this one? I get a free wax.
Yeah, you can totally come. I would love to. We can meet in person. I can see if I can. How do you call that? Put in my budget a ticket from Brazil.
Yes.
To
Cambridge.
Amsterdam to get the most expensive or cheapest wax you can imagine. Exclusive wax.
Letitia, you're coming too, apparently.
My God, no waxing, please. Can I just watch?
Yeah, you won't.
It's really unpleasant, and every time I don't do it often, but it's every time I do it, I ask myself why does this kind of thing even exist? Why are there whole clinics devoted to it? There's a huge one down the street from here, and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and still we do it. And I know that humans do a lot of things that don't make any sense, but this is so extreme because it hurts so much and it's totally unnecessary. But there's so many things to investigate there. I'm really curious. I want to watch it now.
Do you feel that why before you go, or also after you have gone through waxing?
After as well. From the moment I start thinking about it and after I get home, why? Why? It doesn't make any sense. And I still do it, not often, not religiously, but I still do it sometimes. And there is this whole, I remember I have
and your environment also?
Yeah, I have this friend who's an actress, a friend from school since we were, in kindergarten. And she did this very famous teenager play for years. And at one point, there was a scene where they were all at the beach. So they were all wearing bikinis and swimwear and stuff like that. And she said that every time she went on stage for that particular scene, all of them, there were 4 girls in the play, and they were all nervous because they were wondering if maybe someone would see something, from the public, because the hair wasn't long enough to be waxed, but it was still visible. So it was a kind of paranoia. And of course, nobody saw anything. It's not a 4K screen, right? It's a theater, it's dark. And they were sitting, cross-legged. Of course, you're not going to see anything, but all 4 of them were super concerned about this. So it is a huge thing, and it doesn't make any sense. And if when you start asking women why they do it, a lot of them just go blank because they have never stopped to think about it at all. And
so we're going into hair politics now.
Yeah, but isn't it? It's complicated. That's something I would like to see in a documentary.
It is very complicated indeed.
Isn't it? There's so many things involved. I love the idea. I just don't want to be wet.
Easier to do it than to not do it.
Yeah. Like wearing masks has become in the US, in Brazil too. It means something. It means a lot. There's a lot of meaning behind it.
So
and I'm curious.
As a man, can I wonder, where do men,
A hairy man.
a very hairy man, where do men come in at all your contemplating, your thinking of this film? Not at all is a more than fair question, and that's the answer. And that's the answer I'm expecting. But because I don't have any say in this, or it's not my business at all. But I'm involved in a way, indirectly. So do you consider is men brought into that discussion and into your film at all?
My research, totally, of course. I've gone deep into considering, have a chapter in the film just talking to the men, or how the men think about women waxed, or they about their girlfriends or partners, or them talking about themselves. Like, are they also getting waxed if their partner is waxed? Does it happen equally, or does it one side? I have noticed that now it's becoming more popular, very logical in a way, because industry is indoctrinating more advertisement for it, getting your hair removed as a man benefit you as a. With that, they can increase their sales tremendously, because they all of a sudden they have of the other population, the men, that they can access or potentially access. So it's a good strategy. But this film is especially about the vulva, because it's so much hidden. It's a more of a hidden body part than men genitalia, and women do not look at their vulvas as much do, or just have around and see. So I'm also questioning whether women that get waxed actually have a better relationship with their genitalia, or what is better? Do they have they embraced the shapes of their inner and outer labia more, because they know their shapes, they know their body well. They may have any clue of what's going on, because they don't put any care in it. That's also some searching, are there any benefits in getting a wax? Is it helping women connect with their vulva in a positive way, or is it just all pornalized, sexualized women, and we're all trying to become a robot, being super
Barbie
tight
dolls.
This is interesting. A friend of
Barbie dolls.
mine was looking into this subject and was doing vulva casting. And obviously you need to wax or shave before you go to do the casting. Yeah. Actually, I think in Holland, she used to go to Holland to do this. I think this is not so uncommon.
For porn or for?
No, just casting to develop a relationship with vulva, and also to be able to see different versions of it, so you can, as you say, develop a better relationship. Because often in porn, the variety is very, very small, and you get to see only certain beauty standard vulvas, and the rest is basically standardized, and the rest basically a lot of people think mine is very ugly, because it's just, you haven't seen it nowhere in the porn. So the idea, actually, the artist, and I think I can find the details for you, but I think he's based in
it's an artist.
Holland. The idea is to bring more visibility to the varieties and shapes. But there you needed to be shaved or waxed, because then you could only see the full shape to add to your comment.
That's interesting.
I have some beautiful stories about women and how waxing had a positive impact on their lives. Because for waxing, a woman was confronted with her not being comfortable with her body, and her actually was confronted with the fact that she was waxing because of wanting a love and attention from a man. But it wasn't her embodied her vision that much. But through, talking to another woman, which is the waxer, she got to process some of her
traumas.
Yeah, her shame and her trauma, and that was very healing. So also the waxer can be very nurturing, or just very entertaining.
You would be, I think, entertaining.
I also waxed some men. Those were especially gay men in my salon, and I would make a second movie.
Oh, I want it.
Exclusive for.
I love your career already.
I love it. I want to watch it. That's going to be funny to watch. Interesting.
But timing-wise, I think first I should focus on the waxing of women, because it's more of a industry and more of a thing. Waxing of the men is more of a niche, but it's a growing niche, so it will be interesting to do in the next 5 years. Like, there's not hurry.
Wow.
Or that's at least.
So, give us a time frame for when even though Death of Darkness is coming soon. Give us a time frame for the puby one.
I think within a year I could do it.
Okay.
Very simple format. I just need to find some amazing stories. I want to wax about 20 edits. I will choose like the top 7 conversations or the top 5 conversations. I will wove these conversations. So I will cut the dialogue on interesting moments. So the kind of the women talk to each other, but they're not talking to each other. I will be the. But through editing, a lot of women will be connected to each other. That's how I see the film happening.
Jasmijn, it has been an immense pleasure.
What do you think of the title? I need a title.
Oh, okay. We can work on that. I think it may need to have the radical the PUB radical. I thought immediately of, I don't know,
going pubic.
Yeah. Pubes.
What about waxing is not for pussies?
You tricked us into that one. Because you had a title already. You brilliantly thought of a title for months and months, and then you dropped us in the deep end.
No, I didn't have it yet. I have it in Dutch.
That's really good.
What's it gonna be like in Dutch? Can you translate it? Does it translate in a funny way, or does it get lost in translation?
No, it doesn't translate. Well, it's just it translates a bit into cunt as in a swear word. So I would call it like the cunt film,
Which is also pretty
like the
good.
fuck film or the shit film.
That's great.
Cunt film is pretty good.
Yeah.
I would watch that. I totally want it.
It's like, it's almost like that book from the Chicago 7, and one of the guys wrote a book that was called Steal This Book. Did you see that at all? There's a film called Chicago 7 on Netflix right now, and
yeah, I know about the film.
One of the guys wrote a bit of an anarchist, wrote a book called Steal This Book. So, oh, she's gone. She didn't like my idea. No, she's still there. I think. Oh, there she is.
It was frozen.
Yeah, you got frozen. Okay, so the book was Steal This Book, and there's the book that's stolen the most in history. You get the gist. But the cunt film, the shit film, is great. Anyway, I just wanted to thank you for your time and for sharing your past and your plans for the future. If you wanted to add anything to this conversation, or anybody else, the floor is yours. I'll thank you. Okay.
Very much. I enjoyed your
thank you.
way of looking and listening.
Wicked.
Thank you.
If you hold on the call,
Nice to meet you.
I deeply appreciate all the attention I got.
Yeah, I'll kick out everybody else and we'll say goodbye. Thank you, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye. Nice to meet you, Lily.
Hey guys.